I have my notes that I'm going to go over. One of the things I want to say that I'm the Vice President of Berkeley and AACP, and I also work for the City of Berkeley Mental Health. I want to make it real clear, I'm not representing the Berkeley Mental Health hat tonight, okay? So, but I am a community mental health professional, and I can speak from that perspective, okay? One of the things I just want to throw out a couple of statistics, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot about statistics. 40% of people that are killed by the police have mental health disorders. That's what they come up with. Now think about what the number is for those that die in custody, like Kayla Moore. So that 40% is probably not much higher than that. So when we think about people with mental illness, I want to talk about people with mental illness and tasers and some of the concerns, and I want to talk about the groups of people that, if we do have tasers, who are they more than likely going to be used on? And people can just throw out some suggestions. Who do you think they're likely to be used on?
People
of color.
Whistleblowers.
Whistleblowers.
It's not funny.
Young people.
Disabilities.
Demonstrators.
People in wheelchairs.
Wheelchairs disabled. Okay. Right. So the groups will be more than likely, of course, people of color, primarily African Americans, mentally ill, homeless, and poor. Now imagine if you fit into 3 or 4 of those categories, then more than likely you're going to be tased. And so just saying that those particular populations, we really need to focus on what that really means to them as a community and what it means to us as their community partners. One of the things is, when it comes to tasers, does anybody have an idea of how many volts of electricity comes out of a taser when that? 50,000? Does anybody know?
50,000.
The new ones are 80.
Right, 50,000 volts.
That's a quarter of the electric chair.
She says it's a quarter of the electric chair. 50,000 volts, and of course people are tasered usually more than one time. So imagine that. Amnesty International, which we have some information about that, basically they don't condone tasers. They think it's torture. I truly believe it's torture. The fact of the matter is that we know 20% of people that are arrested are innocent. So innocent people will be tortured. And even if you're committing a crime, like, you know, America, we don't torture. Isn't that the thing? We don't do it. So, the war, we don't torture, so why would we torture citizens? So it's excessive force that's being used when we torture people, especially when we talk about our fragile populations, the mentally ill community. In doing that, people, they have special needs, medical needs. As this gentleman was saying, they don't even really know the extent of tasers and what those the medication, the different types of health concerns that people have when people are tased and what that does to them. So far, I got a statistic that since tasing has been, since 2001, I have got information that over 540 people have died from being tased. 540 people. And yet they think it's safe or try to pretend like it's safe to tase people. So the concern becomes, because if you call a person who has a mental health disorder, and we call, in Berkeley, the first responders are usually the police, the likelihood, if they're having an episode, and usually you're calling because they're having a mental health episode, the first thing that's going to happen is that more than likely they're going to be tased. That's going to exacerbate the whole situation. Usually when mental health clients see the police, most of them become frightened anyway, and so it becomes a real concern. And now, once the word gets out that tasers are, you know, being used, I can imagine the anxiety that will start to happen. The other group we want to talk about real quick is African Americans. We say people of color, but statistically it says African Americans are the most likely group to be shot by law enforcement and to be tased. And we can just look at Ferguson, what happened there. I mean, tanks, machine guns, riot gear. We thought they called it Baghdad, right? Missouri. It was appalling to watch that we were actually witnessing something like that. And I'm sure if tasers were available, instead of, it would have been tear gas tasers and everything else that they were doing. And it's just concerning that in America that we think that we should be doing this kind of stuff to our citizens. And when you basically have an inequity around how people are treated, so basically if people of color, primarily African American men, will more than likely be the main suspects that would be tased because of what we would say the dehumanization of who they are as people in this society. People have already said tasing doesn't limit police's use of other stuff that just adds to it. So now I can, hit you over the head with the baton, I can tase you, hit you over the head with the baton, I can shoot you, kick you, all the stuff that we see happens from bad police officers. And we don't want to frame all police officers as being bad, because we do know we have some decent police officers. It's just unfortunate that the bad ones stand out really well. So again, UCS, they said the first year of a police department getting tasers, that there's a sudden increase of death in custody deaths rather. So there's an increase in sudden death among those in custody as soon as they get tasers. It rose by 544% first year of having tasers policed. Within that first year, prior to the first year of them getting tasers, police have shoot about 3 people. Let's see, they found about 3 people shot by the police prior to the introduction of tasers, and then it went up to 7 people. And we can think about Oscar Grant and what the case was. He mixed up his taser with his gun or whatever the case may be, and the training isn't as in-depth as it should be anyway with these with the use of tasers. So the bottom line is tasers don't do anything to lessen, as this gentleman would say, the force. It increases the force that's being used. And they're saying what probably will experience is a new phase, which would be death by taser. Because it's on the rise, it's starting to increase and whatnot. So the community, I'm sure, we don't want more weapons. What we really want is more practical use of force when it's rightfully, when there's a need to really use it. And one of the things that we really need to get better at is community policing, not all these different weapons and stuff and different policies and procedures that support the community. And the city of Berkeley is paying for a study. They got studies all over. New York City did a study. They had like 60% reported taser incidents that basically didn't meet necessity, but they used the tasers anyway. So I could go on with a whole lot of information as to, this particular study that indicates that tasers really make things worse. They don't make them better for the police, and especially for the community, especially for the vulnerable community, our mentally ill, our people of color, primarily African American men, our homeless, and other individuals. As people said, as far as for having peaceful protests, that may go by the wayside, if you don't move fast enough, I guess. So at the end of the day, tasers is something that I know as the Berkeley and AACP we're definitely opposed to, for all the reasons that I mentioned, that this gentleman mentioned, that everybody else will speak to. And I just want to throw out the fact of the matter is that tasers basically are a weapon that has been designed to really destroy, I think, people's ability to communicate. And police officers really need to learn how to communicate with people. Instead of the first thing is that they want to shoot and kill, especially when it comes to our mentally ill individuals. If we seen the thing in Ferguson, that shooting in St. Louis the next day, the mentally ill guy that was for me miles away, and the two police officers said one thing, and next thing the guns are blazing or whatever. There was no type of de-escalation. There was no type of trying to talk them down or whatever. Those are some of the things that we really need to invest in. Training for de-escalation, training for basically being able to see a human being as a human being and not dehumanize our mentally ill and our people of color. Thank you.
Thank you.